In this problem, we're asked to factor completely the binomial expression 12a to the 6th minus 6a. So remember, what's the first thing you have to do with every single factoring problem is decide, is there a greatest common factor? Well, if we look at the numbers 12 and 6, they definitely have common factors. They have a 2 in common or a 3 in common. But what is the greatest common factor? That's the biggest number they both have in common, and that is a 6. Do they both have a's in common? The first term has a to the 6th. The second term has a to the first power. So they have a's in common. And when you're factoring out a variable, you always pull out the variable raised to the smallest exponent in the expression. So I'm going to pull out a to the first power. And I pull 6a out of 12a to the 6th. 6 goes into 12 2 times. And if I pull a to the first power out of a to the 6th power, how many a's is it going to leave behind? Well, you're going to have 6 minus 1, which is 5. So it's going to leave me with a to the 5th. Minus, now what happens when I pull out 6a to the first power from 6a to the first power? Be very careful with this. Some students think it leaves nothing behind, but it has to at least leave a placeholder. So it leaves a 1 behind. One thing you can think about it is if I have 6a, when you pull out a common factor, you're dividing that term by the common factor. And when I do that, 6 reduces, a reduces, it leaves you with 1 over 1, which is 1. So that is why I must have the 1 in that parentheses. So I never write a to the first power, so I'm going to have 6a times 2a to the 5th minus 1. Now, are we done? Always look at your resulting binomial here. Are there any common factors left? Definitely not. There are 2 terms. It's the difference of 2 terms, but is this first term 2a to the 5th a perfect square? No, it's not the difference of 2 squares, so this is our final answer. We factored it as much as possible. And one thing I just wanted to point out was some students start out by not factoring out the greatest common factor, but factoring out a common factor. Say they factored a 3a out of both terms. 3 divides into 12 4 times, so it's going to leave you with 4a to the 5th minus 3 goes into 6 2 times, minus 2. You couldn't stop factoring at this point because there is still a GCF of 2 between the 2 terms. So you'd then factor the 2 out and multiply it by the 3, and you'd land up with the expression we got up here.